just share my screen and we can get started. 1 second. Okay, so today we are, we'll be covering Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, text number 34. So I'll read the Sanskrit word-for-word translation and purport. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavan Brahma Karchnyena Trir Anvikshyamani Shaya Tad Adhyavasyat Kutasto Ratir Atman Yato Bhavet. Word for word, Bhagavan, the great personality Brahma, Brahma, the Vedas, Karchnyena, by summarization, three times, Anvikshya, scrutinizingly examined, Manishaya, with scholarly attention, Tat, that, Adhyavasyat, ascertained it, Kutasta, with concentration of the mind, Rati, attraction, Atman, or Atmani, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, Yata, by which, Bhavet, it so happens. Translation. The great personality, Brahma, with great attention and concentration of the mind, studied the Vedas 3 times, and after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of religion. Purport. Sri Shukadev Goswami is referring to the highest Vedic authority, Lord Brahma, who is the qualitative incarnation of Godhead. The Vedas were taught to Brahmaji in the beginning of the material creation. Although Brahmaji was to hear Vedic instructions directly from the personality of Godhead, in order to satisfy the inquisitiveness of all prospective students of the Vedas, Brahmaji, just like a scholar, studied the Vedas 3 times, as generally done by all scholars. He studied with great attention, concentrating on the purpose of the Vedas, and after scrutinizingly examining the whole process, he ascertained that becoming a pure, unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the topmost perfection of all religious principles. And this is the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, directly presented by the Personality of Godhead. The Vedic conclusion is thus accepted by all acharyas, and those who are against this conclusion are only Veda-vada ratas, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita 2.42. Om Ajnanatamidandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, in this, up until this point, we've been hearing about what the process of liberation looks like for a devotee, and it was being described how the yogi pushes the life air up through the various parts of his body leading up to the tip of his head. And so this is kind of like a very visual description of this process of liberation. And now Shukadev Goswami is describing to Parikshit Maharaj how Brahma reached the conclusion that attraction to Krishna is the highest perfection. And it's described how he reached this conclusion. So I suggested that this class be titled How to Study Shastra, because it can point us in the direction of at least one practical step we can do to internalize the meaning of Shastra. So here, Shukadev Goswami is explaining how He says the great personality Brahma, with great attention and concentration of the mind, studied the Vedas 3 times. So one thing is that Prabhupada says at the beginning of this purport that Brahma is the qualitative incarnation of Godhead, he says. And I was trying to understand exactly what he means by this phrase. Maybe we can come back to this. I would like to see, I don't have a clear explanation of that phrasing exactly, to be honest. So if someone would be able to comment on that at the end, that would be very nice. But he explains how Lord Brahma is the one who is being described here as studying the Vedas 3 times. And actually, I was looking at Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, and he explains that Krishna became a sage and contemplated the Vedas, and he arrived at the conclusion of the Vedas. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily implying that maybe this is Krishna who manifested as Lord Brahma and then studied the Vedas, or whether it's being said in a different way. But basically, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining how nobody but Krishna or his devotee can understand the intended meaning of the Vedas. And he cites a verse from Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 21, Text 42. So we can read that briefly. Here it says, Kim vidate kim atraste, kim anudya vikalpayet, ityasya hridayam loke, nanyo mad veda kaschana. So the translation, this is Krishna speaking. He says, in the entire world, no one but me actually understands the confidential purpose of Vedic knowledge. Thus, people do not know what the Vedas are actually prescribing in the ritualistic injunctions of karma kanda, or what object is actually being indicated in the formulas of worship found in the upasana kanda, or that which is elaborately discussed through various hypotheses in the jnana kanda section of the Vedas. So this verse is explaining how Krishna himself is the only one who understands the conclusion of the Vedas. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains how, by extension, only Krishna or his devotees are capable of understanding the ultimate conclusion of the Vedas. And so, right there, actually, there's 2 points that come out of that for me. One is that we're hearing how Brahma studied the Vedas 3 times. So obviously we've heard, I'm sure everyone has heard that we should be, studying these books like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, all of these scriptures we should be studying multiple times. And I'm sure for anyone who has read, for example, Bhagavad Gita multiple times or Srimad Bhagavatam, something new is always coming out of it every time that we're reading it. It's really ever fresh. And so in this way, it's very appropriate that we're hearing how Lord Brahma studied the Vedas 3 times. And then from that deep study of the Vedas, he came to this conclusion that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection. And then Prabhupada also explains how becoming Krishna's devotee is the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. So, the point that Lord Brahma is bringing forth, the point that Shukadeva Goswami is mentioning is that Lord Brahma came to the conclusion that one should be attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. That's the highest conclusion of the Vedas. So how does one do that? One becomes a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So Prabhupada explains that this is also the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. In 1865, Krishna says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam e vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. So this is the famous conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada is alluding to. And then just kind of conversely on the other side, Prabhupada also explains that anyone who does not accept this conclusion is that one should become a devotee of Krishna. they are known as Veda Vada Rata. So this term means someone who supposedly is a follower of the Vedas. And this is very appropriate, basically saying that there are so many people who, we've already kind of come to this conclusion that who is the only person that's capable of understanding the true conclusion of the Vedas, either Krishna himself or Krishna's pure devotee. So then that means that anyone who's outside of that category, if they're not following the direction of Krishna himself or the direction of his pure devotee, then they're coming to some relative conclusion of the Vedas. And so that's why in this whole system that we have of our acharyas providing commentary on our scriptures is so valuable, because I can say for myself, I'm not a pure devotee, and I'm obviously not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I would fall into this category of Veda Vada Rata, supposedly follower of the Vedas. But because of the mercy of the devotees who have provided us with commentary on our Shastra, we're able to understand what is the actual conclusion of the Vedas. I mean, we're not even capable of studying the Vedas ourselves. So this is the gift that our acharyas provide us through their commentaries. And so anyone who is not following the direction of a pure devotee of the Lord in understanding the conclusion of the Shastra is known as Veda Vada Rata. And I'm sure that we've all I mean, I know that I've personally definitely encountered different quote unquote Hindus who have different understandings of how to practice Hinduism or worship unto Lord Vishnu or Krishna. So one last comment that I wanted to add here is that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, he explains that when Shukadev Goswami is using the word rati, so in this last line, Shukadev Goswami says, Ratir Atman Yato Bhavet. So this word rati, attraction, this is explaining how the conclusion is that one should become attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He uses the word rati. So this term rati, it's not the stage of rati within the 9 stages that we would typically think of. It's actually referring to prema here. So sometimes rati, this word rati, depending on the context, can mean either rati as we understand it within the 9 stages of bhakti, but in this instance, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining that this is referring to prema, the highest stage of bhakti. So in this sense, the ultimate statement that is being said here is that Brahma studied the Vedas 3 times, and after scrutinizingly examining it, he came to the conclusion that Krishna prema is the highest perfection that can be delivered through the Vedas, that can be delivered, period. Krishna prema is the highest perfection. So that was one last comment that I wanted to add. This is something that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains. So these are the main points that I was pulling from this this section today. But yeah, I mean, going back to this point, Brahma is the qualitative incarnation of Godhead. I was wondering if anyone has any comments on that, or if anyone has any comments or questions on anything else from this section.
Not sure, Prabhu.
Yeah.
I don't think it is mode of passion that he's talking about. I mean, the Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, right? Represent this.
Yeah.
I think it is referring that.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the word what he means by the word, with the word qualitative here. I was also kind of thinking, because yeah, we know that like Lord Brahma is sometimes described as like you said, like the incarnation of Lord Vishnu through in the mode of passion. Yeah. Okay. Any other final comments or questions on anything?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Thank you so much for the short and sweet class, as always. Yeah, as you were describing about this Veda Vadarata, it was very, I don't know, it was kind of striking for me because there was this kind of analytical attitude when I read or hear, forget about having access to this, just getting lost in understanding some of the contradicting statements, why Krishna is saying this or why Prabhupada is saying this. I kind of get lost sometimes in that. But somehow, as you were sharing, I kind of understood that attitude of just in the, I don't know how to put it. I'm trying to read or hear just for the sake of name, maybe on the surface level. But when you brought out this Acharya's commentary and probably hearing or reading from the heart, with respect to that final instruction or what's actually the goal, instead of getting lost on the surface level. So somehow that was very powerfully coming today for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a very nice point, Mataji. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I wasn't able to attend Maharaj's reading yesterday evening, but I heard some of the discussion a little bit, and I know this discussion was being had around some of like the, I guess you could say like the social commentary type comments that Prabhupada makes, for example, on women are less intelligent is the famous one, but he makes so much social commentary that you could kind of get tied up on that point. But I've heard a nice, Jai Jagannath Prabhu, I've heard he gives a nice analogy when he explains this kind of like this idea of what is considered to be peripheral. This analogy of the lotus can be used here also. So the peripheral can also be like these petals of the lotus, the most exterior portions of the lotus. And we've heard the analogy of the lotus is floating on this dirty water. I think the water refers to, I forget what in that situation what it refers to. I think just like material existence, but basically the peripheral most outer layer of the lotus could be considered like this social commentary, right? But then at the whirl of the lotus, at the center of the lotus, there's always the most central aspects of Krishna consciousness, referring to Bhagavan Bhakti and Bhakta. So all the topics relating to Krishna himself, how to practice Krishna consciousness, and how what is the nature of Lord Krishna's devotees. These are the most central topics that are eternal and the most important for us to focus on. So, like you said, if we're seeing all of these peripheral comments in the context of those central teachings, then we will not be Vedavadarata, because we will always see everything in the context of the goal. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing. That's so visual and so beautiful. And I was also thinking, as you're sharing, if we or someone really has that kind of attraction to just the outside, we would just be lost there. We won't be able to come inside. We hear that if we are not really sincere in our heart, not genuine, we won't be able to continue. So that's also saying maybe it's Krishna's arrangement for, those who are attracted to just a peripheral. Okay, you just hang on there, and you can't really go into these inner things. That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very easy to get lost in the peripheral things. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Oh, sorry. Is someone going to say something?
No, it's me, Prabhu. It's
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Oh, Lakshmi Kanta, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, that's all I have to share today. So thank you all so much for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.